Good afternoon again. I'm sorry that we ran a little short of time and we had to cut into your coffee break. At the same time, we have some amazing speakers on this panel today, people with some wonderful experience from the profession and also from the industry. And I would not really miss the coffee break. I would rather like to listen to the speakers, the amazing panel that we have today. We have Mr. T. Koshy, MD and CEO from ONDC. He's an amazing figure in revolutionizing India's e-commerce industry. Now, e-commerce is one of those areas where, unfortunately, Indian patents law does not encourage too much of patent protection because we have too many hurdles coming within this area, such as business methods, software, algorithm, computer programs, etc., which pose a hurdle. So it will be really good to hear from him how he handles all these hurdles in his business. We also have Mr. Sridhar Vembu, who I believe will be joining us who has actually joined us on the Zoom. He's the founder and CEO of Zoa Corporation. Again, it's one of the largest software product company in India. Again, I was in a panel with people from Intel a few months ago, and we handle a lot of patent portfolio for Intel Corporation, and we understand the kind of hurdles and challenges that they face in protecting their innovations and also in enforcing their innovations. And again, we would be very interesting to hear Mr. Vembu. We have Dr. Bakulesh Kamath, Executive Director of Cadila Pharmaceuticals. Again, the pharma companies have their own challenges in innovating. They also have, being an Indian company, they also have certain advantages in the sense that the patent protection regime is a little bit weaker, and the Indian companies have a little bit greater flexibility in innovating and also manufacturing generic drugs without the fear of infringement. So we also welcome Mr. Dr. Kama, and then we have Jatin Trivedi, my colleague from the profession. He's an IP lawyer in Ahmedabad, and of course he's been involved in a lot of IP prosecution and enforcement. And we have a substantially good panel here from the industry and from the profession. So let's get on with it very quickly. So I would like to start with Mr. T. Koshy to begin his brief presentation. What we would like to do is we'd like to hear the speakers first, try to make it as interactive as possible. I would encourage audience to ask questions as well. Thank you.
Good morning to you all, and first of all, let me express thanks on behalf of ONDC to be invited in this forum of eminent legal luminaries of India. And I was with pleasure listening to the discussion that was earlier happening. As the theme of the conference is in the area of intellectual property, and you have such experts dissecting and dissecting the legal nuances. We are now taking a phase shift with respect to what's happening in the industry and some of the very interesting innovation that's happening in India, first time in the world. So I'm sure that some of you would have heard of ONDC, some may not have, because it's something very, very new in our country. So let me just put a little context for the open network and what could be the impact it has on the industry, and what could be the kind of the issues that will get triggered when we attempt something like this first time in the world. I'm sure that all of us are very familiar with the idea of e-commerce. I'm sure all the people who are sitting here are using some kind of e-commerce platforms, or many of them, either to buy goods, and it could be consumer goods, or it could be to hail a taxi, or it could be to buy some food. But interestingly, if you look at the penetration of digital commerce in India, is still very, very small. It's about 6 to 7% on the buy side and about a couple of percent in sell side. And there has been something very different about the way e-commerce evolved, building on the development that took place in the revolution of internet. As you are familiar, some of you would have sort of familiar with the way things evolved in the last 30, 40 years of time. Internet evolved as a very democratic place. What it means, if you look at the examples of some of the very common utilities that we are familiar with, one is that information sharing. We all look at portals, to read information. Every company, every individual has presence in the world of sharing information about themselves. But if you look at that way, it's a very democratic participation. Soon after, after a few years of, TCP/IP enabling computers to talk across continents, a gentleman called Tim Lee came with something called HTTP, a protocol, which when he sort of developed, he said either it will be nothing or it will change the world. And as we all know, it changed the world. And he said, let this be a public good. What does it mean? It says, let people build on top of it to share information among themselves. So if I want to make information sharing possible, or I want to express my views as an individual or as a company, I create what we all know as a web page or a portal, whatever you call it, using HTML, HTTP as a protocol. And then it's there visible for the whole world. Any browser which has the capability of reading HTML pages can discover this page. I don't have to, if I create something called Koshy.com or ONDC.com, I don't have to go and register myself with, let's say, Chrome or, any Edge or anywhere. Anyway, all of that can sort of discover me. And the traffic to my site will be a function of what is that I have to offer. Whom is it relevant to? And if it is relevant to a broad cross-section of people, lots of people will come. If it's not relevant, nobody will come. But so success is based on my offer, the relevance of my offer. When the next big change that happened, where all of us are users, what we all call messaging, information sharing, email. If you look at, I may have a very exclusive site, ONDC.com, which is my mail server, because I want to give a lot of functionality to my users, my employees, as well as I would have a lot of secure way in which we communicate with each other. But somebody else may use something like a Gmail, which is a public email facility, or somebody may use their own xyzcompany.com. They all have the flexibility to design their own email provisions. But if they all use SMTP as a protocol, which we all use, they can all communicate with each other. It doesn't matter which proprietary platform is being used to have the internal communication among. He's equally visible. He can equally communicate to any of his own partners in the same email or anywhere else. But as the world moved from information sharing to emailing or messaging and went to commerce, the world took a different view, a different path. It said that it is going to use proprietary protocol to create platforms which are, in a way, behave like walled gardens. It means that if I am, let's take whether I am a card-hailing platform or whether it's a food-selling platform, they are all specialized ones. If I, as a seller, make my product service visible in a network using their proprietary protocol, I'm visible only to the buyers of that protocol. And if I want to be visible to multiple to buyers from multiple platforms, I have to have independent integration of of technology, processes, legal arrangements, terms and conditions, everything, separately with each of these platforms. So what it means that in any domain, let's say whether it's food or it's consumer goods or in travel, the strategy for anybody who is coming in is to create a walled garden and build up and use anything that is possible to create a very significant user base, after which nobody can unseat those people. The network effect will ensure that it will feed on itself. So that's the reason you would see that any domain, some few early adopters would end up having the majority of market share. And it's then practically impossible for any new entity to come and establish themselves. And it's going to be very costly, very often failure. That's why in any of the domains you would see 2 or 3 of them having 80-90% market share. And this is a challenge anywhere in the world. What is a challenge here is that this market concentration leads to certain, to sort of exclusion of a large cross-section of potential participants who are not willing to play as per the rules of this, the large concentrated players, or some other practices which may not be in the best interest of the industry at large. These are the 2 challenges. So this challenge is there in the developed countries as much as it is there in developing countries like India. So the developed countries like the US is trying to address this issue using regulation. Probably some of you would have, legal eagles like you would have probably familiar with what is called the America Innovation and Choice Online Act, which is an attempt to control this challenge. The Europeans are also, but that act is not enacted yet because the lobbies made sure that it is not going to be happening anytime in the near future. The Europeans are trying to address this through what we call Digital Market Access Act, where again it is attempting the same issue, attempting to address the same issue of market concentration and associated practices. Chinese said, okay, I will just take control. Forget it, I'll just take control, tell Jack Ma, sit at home, I'll tell what to do. Whereas in India, we decided to have a slightly different approach. We decided that we are going to use technology and markets with enabling regulation to address this issue. So open network is an attempt to do this. And what would have an impact, especially since we're talking about innovation and specialization, let me just look at that from that point of view. See, when we have, in any domain, very high amount of concentration, innovation is completely left to the few players who are there, who are innovating with the primary focus on maximizing their shareholders' interest. I would do the same thing if I'm running those net platforms. Because that's the best interest, because I have set up these companies with the intent to maximize the interest of my shareholders and my users. So I'll try to maximize that interest. Whereas when the idea of an open network is different. Because when you have such maximization there, as we said, only few people can innovate and be there. When you have an open network, it means that it suddenly opens up humongous amount of possibilities of innovation. Because if I have a product that I want to make myself available using this open protocol, I don't have to go and tie up with multiple platforms. I can use any one of them, but still visible to 1 billion customers coming through any of the buying applications. So what is open network trying to do? 2 things: unbundling of the building blocks of commerce and make them interoperable using a protocol. Unbundling and interoperability. So that is what we are attempting to do. And this would mean that it is going to lead to humongous amount, this is giving the potential humongous amount of innovation and specialization. And the success is going to be a function of what you have to offer and the relevance of what you're offering, and not any stranglehold that you have on the platform as it is. So I'm sure, because this is something being first time is being done, how do we even define openness? How do we ensure the rules of the network? Because at the end of it, network is not as a place, it's not a flea market where anybody can do anything. There has to be certain discipline. Like in the roads, we have, in any country, the roads and the railroads have their own rules of how the traffic would happen. In the same way, there should be rules and regulations. And how do we always encourage innovation in a fashion that it is helping differentiation and not discrimination? So these are the kind of questions that continuously come into light as we try to build on something like this. And I'm sure that in the coming years, this is only 1 year old, and it's like fantastic progress that we have seen. In the coming years, let me just conclude by saying what we expect is that any product or service which is catalogable, which means that there could be many buyers, would be available in this network using this open protocol. And different buying application will come and help their kind of buyers to buy whatever that is relevant for that segment. So that's a kind of transformation that we accept in commerce. And that is, as we were all probably would have seen, when India attempted something like this in the payment side, 7 years ago, what we call UPI. Because in every business, there are two sides, money and goods and service. UPI was all about money. And you saw how the penetration moved to be one of the largest level of penetration in the world in financial transaction. And that is what we expect to happen in the commerce side too. And I'm sure that you guys will be a very active supporter. And I will only encourage you to sort of be a part of, in addition to shaping the environment, also trigger more active participation as individual as well as a corporate you represent. Thank you.